Why I
Welcome everyone to the Stockbridge Library's online poetry series. The theme this season is Sparks in the Dark. And today we are joined by poet Gunilla Kester. And I will introduce her as well as our host, John Gillespie. Gunilla is the author and editor of 6 books in 3 genres, including her full-length poetry book, If I Were More Like Myself. In the last 2 years, she has written and published over 40 poems, and they have been published in various magazines, including the American Journal of Poetry, Citron Review, the Potomac Review, and others. And she has a new full-length poetry collection, Hold Me Still, which she is in the process of searching for a publisher for. Gunilla will be in conversation today with John Gillespie. John started this program back at the onset of the pandemic when he was then president of the board of trustees of the Stockbridge Library. We had thought maybe a few weeks of poetry, and years later we're still going strong with a lunchtime poetry hour. John, thank you so much. And Gunilla, thank you for joining us today. I'll turn the program over to the two of you.
Yeah, Wendy, thank you for hosting. It's I know this is the end, let's say 2021, 22, 23. Yeah, no, it's great to do this. And Gunilla, great to have you back. I know this is like the we always have to have the Buffalo contingent back. I think I don't know. There are probably some poetry pockets in the world, and Buffalo, I think, is one of them. So nice to have you on the show. So what would your take on, Sparks in the Dark, our theme for this year? How did that resonate for you?
I think being Jewish, it resonated a lot because we always talk, especially this time of the year, about the Hanukkah lights and to be the light. And if you know the menorah, it has the 8 lights for the 8 nights of Hanukkah, but then it has one servant candle, the shamash. So we light the shamash first, and then we light the menorah candles. And we always say to each other, be the shamash, light up the candles around you. So it sparked very much with me right at this time.
Yeah, nice. I like that. Light the candles around you. That's a good, yeah. I think we need more of that in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. So are there particular poems that you thought would fit the theme? Or
yeah.
whatever. Just
I picked a few. You know me, I can be a little rebellious at times, but lately I've been working on a longer poem I call Autumn Shapes. And I feel one side of literature or poetry in particular is that it feeds our sense of empathy, that we think about how other people have it, how they live, and we try to, imagine what it would be like. And this poem is about, to me, right now in the world, it seems the greatest divide is not between the rich and the poor, or the white and the black, or whatever other differences you want to list, but between those who have a home, a door they can close, the place they can go at the end of the day and close a door and be at home, and all the millions and millions of people who are on the road. And as you know, we have taken migrants now for over 10, 15 years. Sweden took more per capita than any other from the Middle East than any other country in Europe. So, it's a big adjustment for everybody, but it's something that was on my mind, especially what's going on right now. So here are my 4 autumn shapes. It's what I have so far.
Okay.
I took the torn lace outside dropped it in a pot by the train station, and looking back, saw it waving at me, and knew it will bloom again, if not for me, for someone else or the boy eager to leave. We'll take the cobblestones until we find our way, but he shook his head. A red wagon blocked that narrow road. Why, how interesting, I said, to see what unfolds, how we can squeeze by, how they will make it move under magnolia and lilac petals, shouting at the gravel, mapping our growling path. In the oval park, west of the train station, every bench a dark, solitary pocket packed with soft, still bodies, sleeping or dead. Each falling leaf a spark. I touch a woman's hand and don't know if she's just cold or gone. Darkness surrounds us like a tight skin. It breaks inside me, snarling. It wakes me. The white stones from the square to the scattered beaches, trying to catch every sail, like a shivering mother racing her children, if she's lucky, taking them to a real place, without these remnants, torn flags and burning tires. We run down curling steps that hook our toes, telling us this story unravels with smoke and the smell of gas. It's our time to see former neighbors and friends celebrate while clay surrounds us. And our quick escape shapes us as clearly as the pottery man makes out of nothing a vessel strong enough for water or wine. We climb down the wide stairs and see in each step a mouth spelling, daring us. O road, palimpsest of 1,000 generations, stamped, I'm sure, origin. You stole my home and my name, made me an actor. I ask you, why does the boy carry a rodent in his pocket, shares our rare bread with it? Eyes glisten and gleam in the dark, nails scratch and claw. In my pocket, deep, eating into the lint and seam, a key. O road, your dogs are always growling, bare teeth sharp as stones. Cranes flying south, so tight together, sky paints with mother of pearl. Our faces covered in masks of dust. Behind them, the rot of leprosy, erasing every step.
So when did you write that?
I think I hear voices sometimes. It has happened before. It's like people come to me in the morning at 4 a.m. and they are talking to me about things that happened to them. And I try to write it down. Even sometimes I'm really tired and I'm like, Gunilla, get up and write it down. Because in the morning, of course, I don't remember it. So,
Maybe you need like a little, get your phone out and start recording. Can you
yeah,
come over here to the other side of the bed, please, so I can hear you? Yeah.
I am just not, it's too small. I have my phone. I understand how it works, but I am old-fashioned. I like to write by hand.
That's good. Yeah. Yeah.
And do recommend to everybody who writes, get different size papers. I bought some really large papers, and then the poems get bigger because you have space.
Oh, you mean so you've got giant.
At IKEA, you can buy whole rolls and roll it out all along the house.
Irene, next year we're gonna have the year of giant poems. 36-point type. They have to be really big, fill a giant, yeah. Good. I love it. I love it.
So I brought some poems about what it's like to be a woman in the world. And to be a woman also means to be, for most people, a mother, grandmother in my case now, Irene also, um, a daughter, a sister, and so forth. So here first is about being a woman who loves to play the guitar. I will have to wear these now because my eyes, I had surgery on both eyes, so I can see without glasses except to read.
Except you can't sleep without glasses. Yeah.
You know the feeling. Guitar shops, 4 continents. Why, God, is it that when a woman walks into a guitar shop, humble or renowned, the man behind the counter sports a smile that snakes around his face like the alleyways leading up to Red Alhambra as he hunts through his teeth and sighs while he brings forward his cheapest instrument, pointing to a low chair by the door with footstool or a moment of peace, while dust and noise streaming blend with the glory of a Bach prelude, traveling from major to relative minor to the 5 of 5, and I shake my head while I want to shake the unresponsive guitar. And I really want to shake the young man with his black mustache, which blinds him to the fact that women can play too and have better rhythm or ear than he does. And what about God, who could turn the driftwood guitar golden with a snap? I like to use weird things in my poems. I'm always happy if I some, I don't know what, into the poem that's, doesn't really be considered poetic. So I started a series of colander poems. The colander, it's a very useful and practical tool in the kitchen. And I love my
Oh, is that where you drain stuff in it? Colander? Colander? Okay, yeah.
Right? So here was my first attempt at the colander.
I love it. We got the giant paper, we got the colander, we got the guitar guy. This is like we got a movie cast. Yeah.
Good. Colander dialogue. She thinks she can fool me, that old woman in the kitchen with her knives and strong hands, as if she too isn't full of holes. I know something about holes, how we plug them and drill them, open them with toothpicks, or flood them in a deluge worthy of Noah. I hear her mutter about her mother-in-law, who said her view out the window was better than her daughter-in-law's, even as they looked out the same window. And maybe she was right, seeing her mother died in the camps. Thunder wakes roots, and they begin to march down the street again. Rain widows the view. I hear her tell her daughter, be a Viking, sturdy like the colander, and let the rain drain through. Daughter out there, running, blinded, boys on bicycles. Rain widows the window. Don't keep anything. Let birds beak your memory. Raindrops like holes. Colander solidly uncertain. High-blooming, pregnant daughter loves the scent of dirt, wants to inhale it. Mother and daughter go back and forth, exchanging one chair for another, like writing a word and crossing it out. Write yourself into a corner and fight yourself out. Silence of thunder she thinks she doesn't hear. Whatever she places in me for safekeeping, I will store. I know that what she wants her too. All those lost people. Her work resembles mine as she wrestles with words, rinsing them at her sinking desk, writes them, trusting they will recover the whole.
Well, were some of the words rinsing the words in the colander? Was that the what you had there?
Yes, something like
Yeah, I
that.
love that. I love that. That's
Well,
great.
and the writing were kind of a similar process.
That's nice. Very nice.
Thank you. Here's a poem that was just accepted by the Potomac Review. I had no idea that they were so not often accepting of I have a friend who said, I've sent to them 10 times. You send once and they take it. But this is about me as a mother and my daughter, who is now a mother. It's called After the Storm. We parachute into a new garden, borders erased, minutes changing size. Can a frozen Eden be well watered? Fawn's eyes blind eye staring at a white sky. Strangers follow the red moon, grow and diminish. Nothing plain in the unknown. No longer visiting, yet they are welcome. We set a plate at the table for unnamed ghosts and guests. Remember walking downstairs to hug a book, to trace it, smell it, read a name. At Yad Vashem, a hand and names in tombs, no paradise. At Berlin's Grunewald Station, track 17, metal plaques, one for each deportation of Berlin Jews, October 1941 to February 1945. None of them to Eden. Names extraneous, not included. 50,000 names, too many. They follow moon and word, strange but not extraneous. Knowing their names is constancy, not lunacy. Synergy between then and now, holding them a choice. It's boring, says my 7-year-old, stamping her bare foot. You're old enough to choose, I say. But no 1.5 million were children, just like you, murdered for being what you are. If we don't remember, who will? Looking at the spring garden, greening outside our kitchen, I pray. When we leave, she comes along, hair brushed.
Very nice.
You bring
of-
up generation to understand what happened before. You know, I married into a Holocaust family, so it's very close to our hearts here. Now, here's a poem about my sister who is long gone now, many, many years. It's a true story. Yeah, and it's being a woman is being a sister too, even when your sister dies.
Did you read her the poem before she passed away, or
No.
no?
She did read some of my poetry, and she was always very encouraging. And she did give me a wonderful hardback book by the with poetry in Swedish by the Finnish-Swedish author Edith Södergran. If you haven't read Edith Södergran in any language, she spoke Russian too. I mean, she did die of tuberculosis. She was of that generation. She died young, but the more passionate, sexy, and independent young woman you have to look for. So I really recommend Edith Södergran.
Why did you put that name in it? Can you put that name in the chat later on?
Oh, sure, of
Little
course.
chat. Yeah.
You need the Swedish letters with the dots, the vowels with the dots.
Okay. My
But
former neighbor in DC is Swedish, so if I have problems, I'll call him and
oh,
yeah.
good. He would know
Yeah.
about. Her mother took her. They grew up. Finland and Russia had different borders. In the beginning of the 20th century, and so her mother alone, her mother took her daughter by herself by train to Switzerland to try to save her. And just that, a woman in that generation, and they didn't have much money or anything. It wasn't like,
Yeah, geez.
it's a very interesting life and a life story and geography that what she sort of had with her coming from that part of the world. And bilingual or trilingual, which I have achieved maybe somewhat, but she grew up that way. So here we go. 7th grade at Mudstream Middle. It's a true story. He's a little weasel of a boy with freckles and sharp teeth, who does not sparkle, but knows how to bully. Clomp, 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 he shouts after my sister when she walks into her 9th grade class in her Israeli boots made of paper, but looking military tough. And something breaks inside me, like a big glass window blown out in an explosion. I feel something clean, sharp, and shiny rise like a sickle of the moon or my father's reaping hook. I grab a big shard from within and lick its edge to feel the cutting power. Tasting blood, I run down the stairs 3 steps at a time and use my momentum to jump on top of him like the wild cat used to leap off the roof of our house when I called her for pieces of bread soaked in milk. She kept her claws away from me. But I have mine ready, shiny razors. I will not let him go. For years, he spits on the sidewalk when he's...
Irene, what I just learned is don't mess with Gunilla unless you want to have her jump on your back and get the claws out. So yeah, I like that. Poetry, igniting punches in the dark. Yeah.
So here's another
nice.
newer poem. Some of you know my father died last Christmas, and so I've been going home to Sweden to get my mother out of the big house, empty it, sell it, get her in an apartment. Everything is fine now. But this is what happened to my husband and I. We had rented a car, and this is what happened last time we were there. It's called Mother Must Sell Her House. Mother must sell her house. Street empty, hedge uneven and unkempt. Sidewalk broken with dandelions, wild strawberries, walking barefoot into broken glass. Blood between my toes, on my mother's street. Backseat window broken, hand luggage stolen, 3 passports, around $500 in euros, and a book I love signed by the author. Thief took a minute, and we didn't hear a sound sitting in the kitchen facing the street of my mother, her blood in mine, and days, weeks spent to visit the Swedish police in my hometown, the American embassy in Copenhagen, friendly huge bouncers smiling, and the dirty passport office in Buffalo, New York. I am surprised at how quickly my bloody toes heal.
Wow, what a story.
Yeah,
How
yeah.
old is your mom? How old is your mom now?
94 and a half,
Wow.
living alone. And my father-in-law, we just went to LA. He turned 98. And he gave a fantastic presentation or talk about his experiences in the Holocaust at the Skirball, Jewish Museum of Skirball in Los Angeles. It's really, really nice. If I find the recording of it, I'll put it on my Facebook. He's really something. Now, here's a poem that was published in Tikkun, and it takes place in old Yugoslavia, and it tries to capture what it's like to be a young woman back in those days, in particular, the 70s, traveling by herself. This was before the balkanization of Yugoslavia, and there were still trains who went from one part of the country to the next without borders. And this story, it's a true story. There's a surprise at the end, so just wait and see. Old man ties the string while I breathe. Air tightens, dust from outside, smoke coasting along our stubborn train, time crooked and bent like the ancient roads for mules carrying wooden grapes up and down the mountain outside the window. No name in my books, and I'm forgetting my own, as the uniformed man screams. Dogs think we'll understand them if they bark louder. Time wrinkles its nose at his sweat and bends my head down. His shoes, one dusty, one polished like a mirror. Be street, faster. I must hurry. But doing what? I pull out my passport to show him. Meek, fake, smile under my bangs, hand ignored. Shoes closer, knee grinds against mine, lifting my skirt. He bends, knife in hand. To buy time, I say, tak, Russian for stalling. Between my legs, he pulls out my package. Too impatient, he cuts the string. Snip, snip. He tears the wrapping, stares at me. Without a word, he leaves to read a stolen 2-week-old newspaper.
Oh boy. Hey, Gunilla, this year, maybe we did it last year. We have a little break to let the audience ask questions or give you some comments if they want to do that. Irene or Fran, do you have any questions or comments for Gunilla?
I think I'm mute.
No, you're good.
Yeah.
Gunilla, I mean, you could. Well, Irene, you put yourself on mute. Or Fran, do you want to go ahead?
Well, yeah. Well, just I wanted to say, I really love I love your poetry, number one, but I really enjoyed the poem about your daughter, and really touched me in my heart. It's really beautiful.
Thank you.
And I'm so happy that to know you. It's I like the idea that you mentioned is that poetry really brings out the empathy in our lives, and I think that your skill in doing that is amazing. So thank you.
Nice. Irene, anything to add?
You're muted.
You're muted.
Try. And now?
Yeah, you're good. You're good.
Okay. I'm very proud of Gunilla. All the poems she's been publishing lately, it's quite astounding. And so I want to acknowledge that. And I love your poems best, Gunilla, that are those stories about,
your family, I agree, your daughter, your mother, your sister, your own experience that you just read on the train. They're they are very touching. They're very relatable. Do I have a question?
You don't have to have a question. Yeah, I think
Okay.
you've said a lot. It's great.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're beautiful. I
So,
have a headache.
Gunilla,
Yeah.
what's that?
I have
Yeah,
a
you
headache.
good?
I'm not fully functional today, but maybe I can form a good question.
Okay.
Go
We'll
on.
have another time just before we end up. Another Q&A time. So, Gunilla, are most of your poems have a personal angle to them? You know, where they come from, you know, your own experience or your family's experience? I'm just trying to wonder because it's obviously that's rich and fertile ground to you know do that with poetry. I'm just wondering if more of your poetry comes from that kind of personal part of your life. Does that make sense, the question?
Oh yeah. I think a lot of them are memories or part of dreams that people come in your dream, and then you wake up like at 4 a.m. and you say, what did he say to me in my dream? And all of a sudden it seems really important. So the poem I started out with, that I took the torn lace, and I wanted the association was to, bridal gowns and happy things. I took the torn lace to the train station and planted it there. It was part of a dream I had. So I try to always kind of remember my dreams and harvest them. So there are many of the more mysterious or cryptic poems, which I didn't bring many of today, are rooted in the dreams. And I think as a feminist, a grandmother, mother, a daughter, sister, to be a woman, it is a very rich territory. And I seem to come back to things that are, I think, part of a female experience quite a bit. So it's personal, but it's also something I think all women share in various ways, and understand these, going in, even if you've never played the guitar, that you can go into a guitar shop and be treated like you are a baby because of your gender. Well, the guy who comes in who can play, what, C major to A minor, he gets to have all the good guitars. These are part of our experiences that we share, and I think that community is very important for all writers wherever they feel at home. And I think because I have the two languages, they come to me very often concomitant. Like I feel they are there together. Like some bilingual poems, I'm thinking about Venus, what's her name? Korigata from Lebanon. Her mother spoke Arabic and was illiterate. Her father was a French bureaucrat in the Lebanese bureaucracy, whatever. And she started writing her poems. She would write the Arabic on one side, going, of course, right to left, and the French the other way. And the lines would meet in the middle of the paper. I bet you she used some big papers. And then the poem, she said, always sort of started in the seam between the two, which I thought was really interesting. So that's another part of inspiration for me, is to think about. I have two poems I wanted to read about this. And I also feel very rooted in Torah. The latest poem I wrote just this week has to do with Simchat Torah. If we have time, I'll read it. It's quite long. So for me I have poems about just opening Torah or the Bible and just reading random and writing about what it says. And all the biblical stories and all that. I think we share a kind of dictionary there. right? We all know these stories, whether we are Jews or Christians, but it's a resource for storytelling and narrative.
Yeah. Great. Fantastic. Love it. Yeah.
So here were two poems about this bilingual feeling. Those of you who know anything about Swedish is a Germanic Teutonic language, and it has 9 vowels. We count the Y, and then we have 3 extra O, Ä, and Ö, those interesting ones with the dots on top. And if you see them with a slash through, they are not Swedish. They are either Danish or Norwegian. So we separate it that way too. But if you have long or short vowels that make a difference in terms of the meaning of the word. So if I say to you, dam, it means lady. And if I say to you, dam, it means dust. And so you realize you can get in trouble really fast if you don't separate the long and the short vowels.
Yeah.
So here's my poem named The Long and the Short Vowels. If you have any questions about any of this, I'll try to answer them, but I'm not a linguist, or a grammarian. The long and the short vowels change the meaning of words. The long oo in mor becomes a cuddly word for mom, while short vowels, as in mora, onomatopoeticas, quickly outside to the growling hedgehog mama, whose 8 babies will 1/2 meter into the space around our basement window. Under curling blue wisteria, as poisonous as the blue moon, it calls. I kneel, hoping for 2 long vowels, po, knä, since the short knäcka means to break something hard like a bone or the shell of a walnut. My mother's walnut tree leans against the horizon, twice as tall as the house, including our chimney, skorsten, which combines short and long vowels, where the short shores up a building and the long one weighs it down like a boulder or anchor, not unlike any woman raising children, pulling them up and pushing them down. But I grab a garland branch of the blue rain and scour out dirt and spider webs. My hand a holy cup, slowly reaching with every vowel, short or long, lifting the soft quilled hoglets home. Poor John, he really does not sound like he's feeling well. Did you have any other questions while we wait? I
Had to
can't.
get a lozenge. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm so sorry for you. I really feel for you. I once had pneumonia for 3 months. I thought it was going to kill me, but it didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not easy. All right, the other language poem in my language. The word for thank you, tack, is short and bright like a good clang on a tuning fork. It reverberates in the space between host and guest. Its vibrato cuts through any post-dinner reverie. The 2 hard consonants, the quick vowel, thank you, with the lazy vowels and shuffling echo adds to an after-dinner malaise and can't free us. Standing by the door to her rich home, her eyebrows quick like little birds rising, warblers perhaps, but not shy, or the nuthatch climbing up the fat trunk of her face. Thank you I try again and see juncos jump forward in the snow, only to scratch the surface in swift clawing motions to unveil a crumb or a seed. A seed is a seed if it nourishes. The husk just blows away.
Very nice, very nice.
Yeah, that was about an experience when I was a foreign exchange student at Penn State. And this very nice woman, I should not have written that poem about her, but she invited me to her home for dinner, and my English was so limited. I could read Shakespeare and Milton, but speaking, I was like, thank you, thank you. I didn't know what to say. And then afterwards, I met up with this guy from Ireland. I think he wanted to marry me, but that was not meant to be. But he took me out, and I said, I'll buy you a pitcher of beer if you teach me 10 different ways to say thank you in these situations. And so I wrote them all down in my little notebook. It was so nice of you to let me come, and all these phrases. So next time I had something else to say.
Very nice. That's fun.
I
A lot of great experiences.
This is a poem I wrote a long time ago, and it was just published in Pyrenees Fountain, and they nominated it for a pushcart prize, which surprised me because I don't even think it's that great a poem to begin with, but it's very topical right now because it is a poem about war. And it's also, when I grew up in Sweden, we did have quite a few, what do you call them? People who abandoned the American army. What do you call them?
Deserters.
They were deserters from the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
And I had a good friend who was friends with this guy, so I spent some time with them in his apartment in Malmö, where a lot of refugees are. It's now it's probably the most Muslim Arabic city in Sweden, and it's definitely the most anti-Semitic. Even what's his name? The big. You wanted to make a movie. What's his name? Star Wars guy.
Harrison Ford?
No, the conductor. I was going to say the guy who produced.
I'm not a Star Wars person.
Huh?
George Lucas?
No, not an actor. The guy who made the movie.
I don't know.
The
George
director.
Lucas was a director.
Yeah.
Oh, so thinking about it.
Spielberg? Yeah.
Oh,
Yes, Spielberg had planned on making a movie in Malmö a few years ago, and when he realized it was considered in Europe the most anti-Semitic city in all of Europe, he pulled out. So that's Malmö for you these days. But this is a poem about meeting this deserter and about war.
Hey, Gunilla, I think you're a deserter if you joined the army and left. Are you talking about people that avoided the draft?
No, I'm talking
and
about people
moved-
who came from Vietnam.
Okay.
Yeah, so they walked away from the army. Yeah.
Okay.
It's a little different from the guys who went up to Canada, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I admired them too, but it's not for me to judge. Anyways, this is a poem called "We Dreamed the End of the World." Back then, traced a shape round female letter, gourd, ground, grail. In the smoky tavern by the sloping creek, a woman baking bread, singing. A song we didn't know about the First War, its poets dead, quaint souvenirs from a lost century. Words cut open like trenches, Second War closing in, crime without a name. A man sang, aiming his machine gun at the neighbor's billowing sheets. A woman driving him mad. Wouldn't let him sleep, wouldn't stop pleading with him to shoot, to kill her, after all his fellow soldiers had raped her, until they went soft, used sticks, guns, bottles. She looked like his sister, shiny black hair down to her hips.
Woo.
Phew.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I wonder I wake up at 4 in the morning sometimes.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Now, how often do people visit you at 4 in the morning?
I've had, for a long time, I had one in Syria who was telling me about her husband who was an author and what he had told her to do with his manuscript when, if one day he didn't come home, and he didn't come home, and what she ended up doing. And I don't know, it was a little crazy. But I did write a few poems about her and her situation. And I think nowadays people have told me you have to be careful writing about other people. Like, you have to have experienced it yourself in order to write about it, right? That's how things are going these days for a lot of people. There was a white poet who had written about a black man, and he got into a lot of trouble in America for that. And yeah, part of me understands it, and I agree, but part of me also really believes that literature is the way we can get to know each other and bridge some of these differences. And so, yeah, I don't know. I have two very good poems that I am sitting on that I don't dare to send out right now. And for that very reason, I was warned by some influential poets not to do it. So I'm waiting.
So let me ask you this: do you have any repeat visitors that come to you at night?
Well,
It's
they
like
used
someone coming to you and say, Gunilla, I gave you the story. Why haven't you written it yet? Gunilla, what are you doing? Get out of bed.
I usually yes, yeah, this one, the one that I just talked about, it started as a poem of me coming home. I have a little house in Sweden with a big garden, and that I met myself in the backyard, like behind the house in the garden. I have lost the initial poem that I wrote, and then it became about that young woman. She was like to me, we had a lot of Syrian, Afghan people. Actually, in that little fishing village, we had hundreds at the time. And I always thought when I came home, because my house stood empty, that I would find some family having moved in. And so that was the idea with that. I met myself, but then it was this young woman immigrant who's telling me about all her experiences. And I'm standing like my mother with a raised hammer. Yeah, I don't know why that came to mind, but my mother did sleep with a hammer under her pillow. She was a little nuts, my old mother. She still is. And we had a key in the woodshed in the back. And so this migrant woman I met, that you could get to the key and all, I don't know. I have kept it to myself for now. Maybe next time I'll read it for you.
All right. Yeah.
I'll revisit it. But she came back to me quite a few times. Yes.
That's pretty cool.
So I don't know if I have time to read it.
We have 10 minutes. We have 10 minutes. You're good.
Wrote assignment. I'm in this writing group with Tom Daly. I recommend him if anybody's interested. It's a very good class, Monday nights at 5:30. And he always gives a prompt. Says you don't have to write about it. But to me, it's always a thing of pride to respond to the prompt. And the prompt this time was to pick a holy day, not a holiday, and write a meditation on it. And it was based on Adrian Rich's poem called Yom Kippur.
Yeah.
So I started writing about Simchat Torah, which comes after Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And it's the day in the synagogue when we unroll the whole Torah scroll. So people stand around the sanctuary and they hold the scroll, all the congregants, and up by the bima, the end of the Torah is the Deuteronomy, right? And the beginning is Genesis. And they are standing there sort of looking at each other, so to speak, the beginning and the end of the holy book. And so this was what I wrote about. And it's very new. You'll be one among the first to hear it. Simchat Torah 2023. In the evening, we untie the knot of the congregation and spool out like thread along the walls of the sanctuary, unfolding as the scroll unfolds. We hold the holy book with Kleenex so as not to contaminate its edges with our human sweat. If a terrorist showed up now, we'd make an easy target, too easy a target, too easy always. The children run around in circles, not counting the 7 times, playing hide and seek and peekaboo among the legs of the adults. I remember my father, how I cut off the fringes on the kitchen carpet so he would not trip and fall. In his 90s, he'd taken to dancing anywhere at any time. One must be vigilant. I watched the red drops of yarn fall into my trash can. Sure enough, he went ahead and died on us that winter. Father, Father, how do I not? ... Let me count the ways. Hiding my ugly body behind the perfect scroll, I seek the circle it makes. Words play hide and seek within me. No turning a page here, no turning over a new leaf. Oh, note that ends one musical phrase and begins another. How you taught me to linger. Oh, cadential elision. How I have learned from you, heard in you, the ways to carry on after the news. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, go and count your blessings. The news that cuts your life in two, irreconcilable, before and after. Hello, hello, where are you? In my kitchen, you called my landline. You better sit down. The news that cuts your life in two. No wonder all telephones used to be black. Your face reflected in a cup of coffee until your hand begins to shake so uncontrollably it blurs the image. The end and the beginning crash a meeting as if by chance, casually looking at each other with suspicion and recognition. The children inside the circle taste salt and run faster, sensing the coming storm. Jonah, Jonah, mon semblable, mon frère, we are drowning. We drew the shortest straw. We always draw the shortest straw. The children play hide and seek and peekaboo among the legs of the adults. Like the scroll, the year unravels. It resembles the sweater I knitted for the baby in many colors and types of yarn. On this day, the last touches. Reach for the thick needle with its big eye, tip snub-nosed like a whale. Weave together what's uneven. Mend unintended holes, broken seams, a lost stitch sliding from row to row. Catch it. I have sinned. The doors are closing. Shema Yisrael. Listen to the ram's horn. Line, seam, to seam and sew them together. Nothing's perfect, not even God. Stretch, push, spread, pull. Allow your elastic mind to enlarge, broaden, distend, widen. Father, Father, how do I... ... Let me count the ways over an old collection of stamps where words play peekaboo with my memory, with a father and his young daughter. What does it mean? She asks, pointing at the capital letters D.D.R. in the corner of one stamp. She can't yet read a map, but know enough German to abhor Nein, schnell, verboten, to be 8 years old in 1966. Acronyms not yet in her vocabulary. She sees through the old trick to make her finish her breakfast when more milk and sugar on the oatmeal doesn't work. Eat your porridge, girl, or the Russians will come and get you. Grandfather among the white soldiers on skis along the Finnish border, the cold, the snow. She remembers her usually kind and patient father throwing a tantrum over DDR. They call themselves democratic when they are nothing of the sort. But watch, the playful words, like unruly children and stitches, are sliding down the seam, trying to escape, thinking it's a game. Catch them, tuck them back in. Beware of the longing between Deuteronomy and Genesis. Such an old love story. Bind them together. Roll up the scroll for this year. Gather the children who play hide and seek and peekaboo among the legs of the adults.
Wow. What a journey. Wow. Thank you. Thank you. Hey, Gunilla, put that name. Oh, did you put the name of the
Yes.
other poet in the chat?
I am doing it right now, my dear.
Yeah.
Yes, Edith.
And then Fran or Irene, any final comments or something before we sign off for today?
Gunilla, have you ever given a reading entirely in Swedish?
Yes, in Sweden.
That's what I wondered. Yeah. How
I
does that
think
feel?
I think that's how she spells it. But now, did you
Yeah.
get? Yeah.
Yeah, I got it. I got it.
So yeah, I switch here between Swedish and American, and then the letters change. It's sometimes very weird. Yes, I did do many readings in Sweden growing up in Swedish. I was published in Bonniers Litterära magazine. It's probably one of the most, if not the most prestigious Swedish literary magazine. It was also a very long poem that I wrote in high school, but or before. So yes, I did have readings. That we had a student theater that I was involved in. I wrote a play that was performed there. So there were a lot of things in Sweden before I came here.
I didn't know if you'd been an active poet and writer when you were in Sweden. Would
It
you
wasn't that great at the time,
would you like to see a book with, a page in English and a page in Swedish? Would you like to see?
Yeah, but I think maybe one or two poems, but to publish such a book here and nobody can read the Swedish, it's,
Yeah.
Maybe one day I'll publish one in Sweden, but
Yeah.
The idea of seeing it, but
I'm hoping my mom, once she gets over a little bit her grief right now, she's a very good person. So I'm thinking of translating some of the poems and have her help me with the Swinglish, as I call it.
Yeah. Well, Gunilla, thank you for another amazing reading. Sorry for my exit there to get a lozenge, but not my best day feeling wise. But thank you for, your stories are so compelling. They're so personal. I feel like I'm looking I'm either standing in your kitchen or or the synagogue or someplace else, the garden. So I really appreciate your work.
Well, if you ever come to Buffalo, you have a whole tribe here who will welcome you.
Yeah, no, I got the tribe. Yeah, I know.
I'll make you some Swedish meatballs.
There we go. I love that. I love that. Okay, I'm getting in my car. I'm getting in my car now. Yeah.
We'll
Feel
see
better,
All right.
John. Thank you. And thank you,
you
Gunilla.
all so much.
Gunilla, thank you so much for joining us. It was
Thank
a
you.
wonderful session.